Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the instant reaction here on the Cannon Podcast. Arsenal 2, West Ham 0, a thoroughly professional, if not memorable performance at the Emirates. Mate, I'll start with the headline. Let's just jump straight in here with my boy George. Can I put this into a headline? I'll take that. We'll take those, whatever. I would take 38 more of those. It was not entertaining, particularly. I think it's not a game that will live particularly long in the memory. A couple of talking points to come off. But the start of this sort of 5-game run where we, according to odds analysts, had the easiest run in the league. To get 3 points, to get it with only one injury. I was going to say, well, maybe Declan Rice with two. Yeah, there's some stuff to get into and a couple of things that were maybe slight concerns and a few little things here and there. But overall, it's over to Liverpool and we are top of the league, baby.
My headline is 3 for 3 against the physical mid-blocks. That is my headline. And it is another way of adding games to the sample of that. And to be honest with you, mate, like, we say it's boring and, we'll talk a little bit about stuff to improve, but I don't care.
Yeah,
we have not done this previously. And you know what? I don't think that it was as easy as people may have thought with Nuno coming in. We all know what a new manager does, and we know what kind of manager Nuno is in terms of being able to set up compact shapes brilliantly. And you know what? To be fair, West Ham looked very good defensively. It wasn't even one of those where I felt like it was a lack of creation from us.
Excellent. Excellent.
Very good. And I think all of them as a whole, even their forwards were defending quite well in terms of really being willing to track back, especially Somerville as well, which I thought was impressive because we were trying to go down that right-hand side. Bowen was really hardworking as well. Everybody was keeping quite a narrow shape. And I thought, this is going to be tough. Like, this is a very, very well-drilled block. And that's the first thing you do when you walk in, right? You walk in, get a good defensive shape, reorganize everything, and you build from there. And Nuno's excellent at that. So from our perspective, to walk out something like nearly 2 XG in the first half, I'm sitting there saying, we're creating. It's just difficult. And this is going to be a case when you face this kind of team. So for me, I was very bored in a good way. And I'm happy to be bored.
Yeah, and I think also, look, we want to blow teams away. I know we do, and we want to come away from these sorts of games, these games against Olympiacos or whatever it might be, and go, oh my goodness me, we've landed this is the Arsenal team, and we're going to remember this game forever. There's going to be probably 15, 20 of these, I hope, certainly over the course of the season, which are just pretty basic, pretty non-memorable results, and that's okay, and I really am okay with that. And also to achieve that in the Premier League, the outcome may be not as exciting to watch or whatever it might be, but the actual what goes into it, to me, that's impressive, and that's the thing to focus on, and how we've done that. And again, George, to come out of a game, there are some things to get into, which we'll come to in a second, but to come out of a game, another clean sheet. I don't know. I think we must be on for, in terms of open play goals conceded, we must be on for something like 7 over the course of the season. The defensive discipline, we did a scout episode, sorry to plug it, did a scout episode on during Timber yesterday, and it's what he does in individual isolated conditions, but it's doing it over and over and over and over and over again. And Gabriel Timber, Saliba and Calafiori again, and David Raya had another professional performance, and to just pop that out. Yeah, as I say, it's not that exciting, but this is what, if we're going to win the title, this is what the consistency that's going to bring us. So that's the impressive bit to me, even if it doesn't feel exciting.
I just don't want to be arrogant to the point where last year this wasn't the case. It was frightening. And in fact, we were losing points. That was the shift, right? So to go to a boring 2-0 win that we felt like we could have got 3 or 4 is a very welcome shift, and is the difference between a title from last year to this year. Those types of mentality swings are very important. Look, I start to worry when the boring results in non-threatening play, right? Like when the boring is resulting in just territory to occupy, not territory to penetrate. And I don't think that was the case. We were absolutely trying to move the block around, and we were making some really good opportunities. They weren't just quite coming off. And I mean, even in the first 10, 15 minutes, I mean, Eze misses an open net that really he should be putting away. And, from that very opening minute, I felt like this was a team ready to play. And what I really liked, by the way, was the response in the second half. I felt we came out very purposeful, something that we didn't do in the previous game. I felt like in the previous game when we let Olympiacos go, I thought the second half was a little bit turgid. It was a little bit slow, and we got lulled into almost the play of Olympiacos. Here, I thought we were right on top of their necks from the very first minute in the second half, and I enjoyed that. I thought Zubamendi to come in was absolutely incredible, especially after Martin Odegaard went off injured again, kind of unlucky. I don't think any of the injuries, by the way, that I saw were big things to get worried about, to be honest with you. Even Martin Odegaard was like a knee on knee. That's incredibly painful. It's one of those that resolves very quick. And even Declan Rice, he made a motion. I don't know if anybody called it, but he was doing one of those. It's just he had a tight back. So, I mean, it's those that I don't think is an actual serious injury or anything like that.
Mikel had a quote this week about Gabriel, and I absolutely loved it. And it was something about, him coming off against Olympiacos, and everyone's going, "Oh no, is he okay?" And thank God he's starting. And he said something like, let me try and find it, but basically he could have carried on. And that is, here we go. Arteta on Gabriel. This is on from Wednesday. He could carry on, but he's played a lot of games. He's coming from a long-term injury. We have to look after him. I think we're going to get a lot of moments this season where, Rice comes off, Odegaard comes off, and they could have carried on. Maybe Odegaard couldn't, but probably Rice could have got to the end of the game. Maybe Timber, White, etc. in the past have just plowed through because they had to. And I think we can be a little bit more, a little bit less, ironically, less risk averse in that sense and more risk averse in other senses. I think also this is a day, George, for kind of slightly more big picture thinking. And there was loads of sort of stats and stuff that I want to come to. Most wins for a manager of a top flight English side in their first 300 games. Mikel is fifth in the top flight English games, 177, exactly the same as Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, which is just incredible. And I think whenever people try and claim that the Premier League isn't harder than it's ever been, just look at the win rates of some of these managers and what they've not won. At 24 years and 29 days, Arsenal's Bukayo Saka is the 7th youngest player in Premier League history to reach 100 goal involvements and the youngest since Romelu Lukaku in February 2017. And Bukayo Saka also joins an elite club. Let me pull this up because this is particularly exciting. Let me just show you guys this. This is Bukayo Saka becomes the 8th player to register 100 Premier League goal contributions for Arsenal. Only the 8th player in Premier League history, 100 goal contributions.
In 200 games.
In 200 games. He's 3 contributions behind Robert Pires. He is 5 contributions behind Cesc Fabregas. He is 7 behind Theo Walcott. Within the next 3-4 games, who knows with this kid, he could be bearing down Ian Wright. And this is, we don't like to do these comparisons, and he'll have a great game and you'll say, mate, I think he's one of our best ever attackers, and people go, oh no, it's objective. I mean, forget the arguments about whether the game's got harder or not. This is becoming objective, that Bukayo Saka and what he is doing for Arsenal is just amazing. So I think big picture here, there's he
deserves his own section. He really does. I mean, when you start to look at what he's had to do in the journey, right? Mikel was kind of talking about, because people had asked him about when he switched off to the left, and it kind of reminded him about, the initial first game about having him at left back and just the journey of those 100 goals, mate. And of those 200 appearances, how many were done at left back?
Yeah.
And, I think that we just accept because it was greatness, and we are watching a living great. Like we will get old. Me and you will be old. Hey, how was the podcast on the instant reaction? Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka will see.
These kids, they don't understand.
They didn't watch him. And, we're watching a living legend. And I don't know how many fans can sit there and say that they're watching a living legend. Like it's very rare.
It's statue stuff, man. It's statue. This is statue stuff. If he wins Premier Leagues for us, if he stays at least till he's, I don't know, 28, 29, 30, who knows? He'll be past those names on that list. Yeah. It's statue stuff. So I'm very grateful to have him. Let's get into a little bit more of the analysis. We'll come to all of your comments and super chats at the end, and we'll do some numbers in just a second. But really not loads for me on this game in particular, George. A couple of things. One, and you sort of mentioned it earlier, it shouldn't, because we didn't win 4 or 5-0. We wouldn't necessarily be discussing this, but what we were doing in terms of the manipulation of the block was really, really good in terms of the positioning of a lot of the players, in terms of the stretching, in terms of the linking, in terms of the running in behind, lots of stuff. The only thing I have an issue with is probably the tempo, but in terms of the access to the center of the pitch, in terms of the passes we were playing, in terms of trying to go over, we were playing a lot more, the horseshoe stuff. There was a lot more variety to our game. I think the tempo is probably the only thing. I will say this though, and this is across the game, probably my only complaint. Timber and Calafiori look brilliant today, and they're probably our best attacking players to some degree, maybe up there top 3, top 4. And that's fine. And I'm okay with that. in some senses. There's a part of me that feels if your system, unless you have Nuno Mendes and Hakimi, basically makes your fullbacks, your wingers your wingers Bukayo Saka and let's say it's Eze or whatever, and your fullbacks are the ones with the lots of touches, with lots of space inside, with the opportunities and stuff. It feels a little bit of a waste. I'm not going to go too hard on this because this isn't something that happens consistently, but I did feel if we'd drawn that game, I might have been slightly harder on that. But equally, they did have a good performance.
Yeah, and I thought especially Calafiori, like I think Timbers was just very consistent in terms of some of the things that he was picking up, especially his movement's always very good, but it's just solid. He's always a 7 out of 10. But I thought Calafiori, who had a rough couple matches previously, had now improved. Like there was a little bit more improvement in this match, and he was drifting off into really interesting pockets and being able to drive and provoke. And it's always a trade-off though, mate, because I mean we're sitting there and we're saying if we don't want that, then we may want more carries from Saliba to take hold of his game more and want him to burst into midfield more. And it's about picking your moments when your late runners are provoking. What I think we want to see a little bit more of is Saka inside, being the one to receive or whatnot. So when you do provoke and you lay off to somebody, it's not being laid off to a Timber in the half space. It's laid off to our more dangerous attackers more often. And I don't think I think that's the biggest thing that I just want as a slight tweak, because I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. We've got brilliant carriers from deep coming up, but it's more so that they seem to dominate the end action. So not only do we have that, but we're giving it to them in the half spaces. And I'm kind of saying it's not that it's a bad thing because they are effective. They're able to move people. And at the end of the day, that's the name of the game. But you would like to see your more dangerous attackers get a little bit more opportunities ultimately. And that's about it.
That's literally it. It's just literally the outcome. However, you've got there is that Timber and Calafiori are probably having a little bit too much of our attacking moments. That's literally it. And as I say, actually, specifically with Calafiori, I'm okay with that because of I mean, he had that shot and obviously it hit the post and stuff. And I think there is a real value to that. But yeah, I think he's brilliant. But I also think if you are going to do that, if you're going to build a system around that, I'd want more Nuno Mendes-y type players. But anyway, small thing. But yeah, I did think just generally we completely controlled the game, completely controlled territory. There was nothing really. I think there was a couple of moments on the crosses and they had some nice deliveries where maybe we looked a little bit suspect, but nothing really majorly. I think to come up against, and I know I said this earlier, but I want to stress it, to come up against a Nuno manager bounce West Ham and control the transitions in the way that we did, I don't think it's not going to get spoken about, and that's fine because it's just not the story of the game. But what didn't happen is almost more interesting to me in some senses, especially in that second half. And
I maintain Nuno's going to do really great things at West Ham. I maintain that. I said that on a previous pod. I think he's got the core for a team that really suits his style. And it was not a given. It was not a given. I hate saying that, we've made this transition to boring when there was something like, I think in Mikel's tenure in terms of his London derbies, he's lost like 4. And 2 of them have come from West Ham. So this, people just want to assume and insert things, but, there are certain teams that you struggle against and we are knocking them back. I mean, Olympiacos, same kind of thing. We're asking for 3 or 4. And that was a team that really troubled us in Europe, no matter about us having many more goal scorers. We had the Pepe, the Aubameyang, that kind of team. We were supposed to walk over Olympiacos and we didn't. And it's about understanding the journey there, because if we can start to knock off these things and make this boring, we are going to sit here absolutely ecstatic and lifting a trophy. I am convinced of that. And like I said, 3 for 3 in this specific game. One thing that I really liked from us in terms of what we were trying to do was Zubimendi. And I don't know if I get a chance to just highlight him, because when you look at some of the most impactful moments throughout the game, Zubimendi's pace of pass is always there. It was brilliant. I thought he walked in cold, by the way, walked in and dominated the game. Really, really strong performance from midfield and being able to stretch play, being able to understand when to be more direct, when to recycle a bit more. And he just walked in, and I think the team calmed down a bit from him, where it seemed like we were really rushing our actions to get high and wide really quickly. He was just a really breath of fresh air for me as far as the tempo went. And I thought he did well to do that, because I think Martin Odegaard and the Eze thing, one thing I really liked the first 20 minutes, but it was a little vertical. And I think people were finding out who was supposed to play make, in a sense, because there was a lot of players on the pitch that was brilliant. You look at Trossard, Saka, Eze, Odegaard. I was excited. And I thought that they were doing really good job of trying to move people. But there was this almost overlap where I felt people were feeling each other out. It was the first time they've all played together. So there was like, who's the main playmaker? Who's sitting back behind the block? There was a little bit of that confusion. Zubimendi walks in and then bang. I think there's a lot of symmetry and people know their roles because that's more of a familiar change, really. And it's a credit to him that he can walk in. Zubimendi, I think, has started every single game for us in the Premier League prior to this. And that was kind of the point. Like, we were looking to give him a rest because of that load. And we're just a lot more intentional with it, mate. And, the people that are coming in are starters, and the starters that are leaving with a purpose about being able to recover. And that's going to be huge in the context of the season.
Yes, it is. Let me try and get this right. Hang on, because I just don't want to get us copyright struck. Before we move on to the numbers, I'm just so glad we're not talking about this. is another thing, and maybe the what hasn't happened today is a bigger aspect to me. It's a Stonewall pen. It's a Stonewall pen, and I don't understand how that can't be clear. That isn't clear and obvious, and there isn't like a clear no, go and have a look at the monitor. And the Gyokeres thing, which is what's his face, their goalie, Nick Pope, getting the tiniest touches. Oh, that's clear and obvious. It's crazy. But I'm glad we're not talking. I'm glad this isn't a big talking point at the end of the game. And this is the thing. And I actually think Arne Slot spoke about this in a recent press conference, and you could take it whichever way you want. But the way I take it is, yes, there are certain things, but you should just be so much better that these sorts of things don't have to matter. And that's the problem, I think, last season, is because we were so much closer to the line. These types of margins became so much more important. And with the level of incompetence and the level of issues with the PGMOL and the refereeing structure in this country and the just the power of officiating, I'm glad we're not in these conversations, I guess.
We've put ourselves in a position not to talk about this, but it's also like we're battling uphill. And I don't like it. You take 2 steps forward, 1 step back in this sense. I mean, you're still progressing forward, but it's still frustrating from our perspective when, again, I'll just say it's millions. This is not something that we can just kind of go over. And you know what, mate, I hope maybe we can talk about it on the pod broadly. I was really worried about the Mark Clattenburg comments about Howard Webb, not because it's about his particular person, not because they probably don't like each other, none of those things, but this idea that subjective bias can come into your actions. And it's logical. Everybody has it. We all walk in with our preconceived biases and we try not to let them affect it. But at the end of the day, when we've got the banner of objectivity openly talking about it, I don't think it's good for the game. And at the very least, we've got to sit there and find a way that we're not talking about this season in, season out, because it went for us today, and that's because we're brilliant, and I'm really happy about that. But there are days that we're not going to be brilliant, mate. We can't sit there and expect to be brilliant. And I don't want to have to sit there and say we have to be brilliant to overcome a ref. I want to say that we have to be brilliant to overcome our own bad play. And I do not want to make that a conversation. And unfortunately, too often it is. It too often is. And that's just the facts of the matter.
3.4 expected goals to West Ham's 0.8, 21 shots to 4. Impressive. 5 shots on target, though, which less impressive. Open play shots 12-2, 68% possession, 593 passes to their 276, 44 final third entries to their 23. They created minus expected threats. Interesting. 57 deep touches to 12. 31 zone 14 touches to 3. Kind of tells the story of the game largely in the running XG. And I did just think generally it was a performance that was consistent over 90 minutes. And that's not always been the case for us. There's been sort of waves in games at times, and especially in these sorts of games, especially against West Ham and the sort of record we have against West Ham. There's the shot map, some really, really big chances that got missed, as you can see. I think there was one early. I think it was the Eze one that got blocked. I can't remember exactly.
Eze not even blocked, just he skied it. Remember? Yeah.
So that game could have been out of sight much earlier. And there it is, the Pyrenees, the gorgeous 74.4% field tilt. The Pyrenees, interesting, because I actually thought Ødegaard was having a good game, but it's interesting that actually that came after his substitution. So maybe something slightly different there. But I think with Zubimendi, what you were saying about the sort of the control that we had.
Yeah.
Let's come to your questions, as many as we can. Starting with Roberto, who says, nice to meet you last Monday. Nice to meet you too, Roberto. We met Roberto on our director's box. If you want to chat to us every month, you get the opportunity to chat to me, George, and Rohan live. We invite people on the show and we chat to you guys. It's lovely to get to know you.
From the Czech Republic. I still can't believe we've got
Croatia.
people from, Croatia, sorry. But it is crazy to me that we've reached different people in the world. So thank you all for joining in. Like, it's just insane to me.
Still can't believe it after listening to you for more than 2 years. Love you guys. Come on, you guys. Thank you, Roberto. Lovely to meet you. Ugi, has your shirt arrived? No. I actually cancelled it because I wanted to get it with the Premier League font, and I haven't done that since. But I do need to get it. FYI, I bit the bullet and got my Timber jersey last night. That's a good pickup, Ugi. Alexandre, I liked the basketball blocks by West Ham. Was that a new tactic? Lol. Yeah, there was some. I think they, to be honest, they defended quite well. Like, I think you sort of mentioned it earlier in terms of what going backwards, the attacking players. But again, Mavropanos, like, I thought was brilliant. Like, he really was, and they dealt with us wide quite well and forced us back quite well. This isn't a terrible team. They haven't had the right coach, I don't think, up to this point. I think we'll probably see that over the next couple of months.
Yeah, and I think like the whole basketball screening thing has been kind of a thing that I've personally seen. I remember us in the different knock before we even started the podcast, we were talking about basketball screens in terms of set pieces and things. So yeah, like, it's just transferable qualities from different sports. Like, that's absolutely going to happen. I think the only thing, just to touch on this, is that the long throws is kind of interesting as a whole. Like, it does seem to be a tactic, and actually Calafiori gets really good distance on it. So when we're talking about it in terms of creating some chaos, the one thing that I am noticing, we are sucking teams to the front post quite a bit, not just on our long throw-ins, but on our set pieces. And it's leaving a lot of space. Like, the Declan Rice goal comes, by the way, from him following up on a rebound from this exact same thing. As a Sky's a chance. People are almost getting so afraid of not being able to deal with the front post action and with the Gabriel Magalhães and of those of the world, that it's leaving space in other areas of the pitch. And so it's become kind of this thing where I think people look at us and they approach a set piece and they're just worried and they start losing their marker. It's almost the equivalent of looking in the tunnel and seeing how big somebody is. And wow, bro, he's so tall. But it's kind of that case with the set piece thing. And it's evolving, mate. Like, not only has this been, is this now the third season in a row? Definitely the second, where we're like top for the first 10 games off set pieces. But it's a consistent thing that, we've been able to do. And I don't think it gets spoken about enough. We kind of almost, I don't know, we almost just accept it just in general. So I think that the set piece idea is something that we need to embrace, and we've got to stop kind of critiquing it. It's a consistent, sustained way of producing output. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm sorry. Not when it's now 3 seasons nearly on the bounce in which we're consistently top for it. It's consistently producing over 10 to 15 goals for us. So yeah, I think that that's something that we need to embrace a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's 3 seasons. It's since the beginning of the 23-24 season.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's Jova's adapting because he will be studied beyond belief. Yeah. Jamal says Saliba and Calafiori took real responsibility in build up. Yeah, I thought Calafiori had a fantastic game, and Saliba as well. Actually, I thought Saliba was really, really good today. This is the sort of game where he can coast. He coasted against Olympiacos. I think today he was a lot more on it and trying to set the tone and trying to set the tempo and build up. Gio the Gunner says, signed Semenyo. We're winning a quadruple. Semenyo, yeah, has been a long time favour on this podcast, and certainly with George. Yeah, he just looks absolutely
He's taking the next step this season
to play for this Arsenal team. I mean, he only signed a year extension. I think I'm correct in saying in the summer.
I don't know. I was just so disappointed when that happened. I was pushing for that to happen this summer. It should happen. By all accounts, it should happen. And it's just such a brilliant option off both sides, by the way, too. Like, people don't even talk about that. He walks in and is able to do it. And I also think he's got some levels to go in terms of his ability to come deep and affect play. Like, how we use the left wing now with Trossard being somebody to kind of receive in pockets a bit more. Semenyo is a brilliant touchline option, able to make space anywhere. But I do think Semenyo's physicality and ability to kind of hold off contact from behind will make him a weapon in the middle of the park if he's able to show those things and come to us, because I think that's just such an easy win, mate. It's just, I'm tired of keep going. It's such an easy win, and he would come in and just excel.
Yeah, no, he would. I think we've said this before, but I think we're in a position now where I hope we can start to plan like this and not sort of feel like we're plugging holes, and more just sort of going right. What's the situation with this player, that player?
Yeah,
I look at like Adam Wharton. And it's like, could we get by with another 2 years of Marino and Norgard? Maybe. But if Wharton's moving, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's the sort of situation we need to be in, I think. And yeah, Semenyo is top class. Mike Watts, Gyokeres is not better than Havertz at anything. I don't agree. I think Gyokeres certainly has more strength sort of shoulder. I think there's a more relentless runner there. I think in terms of the ball striking, there's more power and can generate more power and more, what would be the word? Yeah, torque. But I think Gyokeres probably had one of his worst days today. I hate talking about it. We've spoken about it so much. All of the stuff that he was getting wrong today, stuff we've discussed before, it's not worth sort of going over. But I would say to those who maybe have not quite seen where Gyokeres' limitations are, this is a good game to see it. I think in terms of like, he's not quite allowing a lot of the stuff to stick. But equally, if he scores that goal, if he just gets a little bit closer on that, is that there's a chance where it goes across the box. He scores a tap in, and no one's complaining. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my position with Gyokeres. I think he frustrates in these games when he doesn't score, but ultimately he could do everything else, put that tap in, and no one would care. So
all I'm gonna say is that I'm glad that we have an option that we don't have to rely on this purchase banging in order to define our season. That's all I'm happy about. I've laid my staff very firmly in terms of what I believe that Victor Gyokeres needs to improve on. I was very hesitant for all the reasons that I'm currently seeing. I think now's not the time. I think when Havertz is back fit and we look at the tandem between the two, I really think that we're going to be looking at somebody who's a really potent super sub and being able to stretch teams. I think we're going to really going to have, he's going to be one of those players that will help us change games. In terms of it being a complete 90 minutes, I'm not sure, but I'm just happy in terms of in the interim, he's giving his all. He's making himself a nuisance ultimately, and he is pressing for however long he's on the pitch. So from my perspective, he's not a net negative. I think that's very disingenuous to say. However, I don't think he's been a mover in the positive direction. He has just helped us maintain our level. And you know what? You do need some of those players. And look, he's got time. He's got some stuff to show in the second half of the season. I really think Havertz being fit, we would have had a better adaptation. Like, I don't think in theory Gyokeres or Mikel actually wanted this kind of start. You know what I mean? Like, he's just signed. It was kind of one of those things where I feel he would have wanted to be worked into. And now he's had to play 90 minutes consistently whilst adapting to a team, a new pressing structure, and a league that, yes, he has come from Coventry, but really at this level, at the Arsenal level, that's not a team that he's actually been at, period. Like, performing in a big team is completely different from performing in small teams up to this point in your career. The pressure is very different. And I don't care that people are going to talk about how Sporting are a big team. Yes, they're a big team outside a top 5 league. I'm talking the big time in which you're at Arsenal Football Club, starting number 9, looking to demand to win titles. It's a very different type of pressure. So I'm okay with it. And, Havertz got his time to transition as well. Wasn't a brilliant start. And then we're looking at the second half of that first season in which he starts scoring nearly every game right in the run. And he was really important. So for me, he's got time. Bad game. But in the end, it's not really costing us. And at the end of the day, that's all you need. He's contributing to press, and it's not a net negative. That's it. There's nothing else to say.
He's obviously trying. Like, he's really trying, and I can see that, and I can't fault that. And I think there's some nice moments here and there. But I think I really do quite strongly feel that the Champions League games, like the Olympiacos games, when the spaces are different, there's a lot there for us, and he's going to help us a lot. He's going to take the pressure off Kai Havertz. I don't think Havertz and Jesus as a pairing is the best pairing necessarily as a sort of pair of centre forwards. I think Havertz and Gyokeres as a pairing is a really good one. But yeah, it's just going to take Havertz to come back, because this wasn't a game for him. I think Old Trafford, ironically, the only time he's had them available was a Gyokeres game. Maybe he hadn't adapted by that point. He hasn't quite got there yet. But yeah, we can't keep saying the same things every week. We're not going to go back over the same limitations that he obviously has, and we've been consistent on what the limitations are. It's about finding some solutions, as we've always said. So there you go. We had one more. During Timber gets better every game, man. Yeah, George and I just did a big scouted episode on During Timber. He is extraordinary. We've got loads of thoughts over there, so you can go check those out. But yeah, I thought in the final third, the sort of impetus that we're talking about on the scouted was really shown today. I think he's got a new mindset in the final third, which feels to me, really exciting to see how he affects games in different ways. Because ultimately, in these sorts of games, you're asking him to complete, let's say, 3 1v1s out wide, and then what you're doing. So we need to see more. And I think we know how good he is going that way, and now it's adding stuff in the final third. I think we saw good signs today.
Yeah, Yuri and Timber. Really good movement today. I just want 1 or 2 of those whipped crosses and like better decisions that we kind of talked about on the scouted to really become like more prominent instead of like the 1 or 2. But he's so young. I keep going back to this, even to the scouted. I'm still amazed that when you said that he was 24, because to me that's a baby, even in defending terms. Like he's got another 5 years of development, and it's incredible. I mean, yeah, he's been really, really good. And I am happy that we've got Ben White back, that hopefully we can start to see just the level interchange between the two, because they will push each other. They will. There will be Ben White games, and there will be Yuri and Timber games, and there will be moments we need to mix and use both. And I think right back is probably the one position generally that I'm looking for substitution the most, because of the quality being so great between the two players there. Yep. You know, it's very, there's a couple of places where I don't, I think have comparable quality, but right back is probably our strongest like depth. How far Ben White is to Timber is really not that far. So it's brilliant.
And the difference in their actual profiles as well, I think is exciting, because you can change games in different ways. So yeah, it's cool. Andre says the Swedish media glazes Gyokeres like he's Jesus. Well, to be fair, he's one of their best players in the national team, and if you're Croatia, as Roberto's probably watching, I imagine Luka Modric gets a good rap in the Croatian media. It's just one of those things. But yeah, we've discussed Gyokeres a lot of times. I know we won't continue. Okay, thanks everyone. We appreciate you being here. We covered everything, covered all your super chats and stuff. But yeah, I think ultimately all eyes on Liverpool. They've just started. They're 5 minutes into their game. It's now time to turn over to them. They've dropped Florian Wirtz. They've got some questions to answer. And we'll see. And we've got 4 games coming up that are absolutely winnable. Some Champions League games in between. And we've got a squad that, again, not to do this constantly, but this has been done without Havertz, without Jesus, without Madueke, without Odegaard, obviously, for that sort of second half. I'm sure there's players I'm missing as well. Yeah, so we keep going. It
is 3 for 3 on the physical mid blocks. We keep them rolling. If we can knock it back in terms of knocking 6 for 6, I will say it. I'll go on here in terms of the instant reaction saying we're able to go 6 for 6. I will say that Arsenal will win the Premier League. That was the big thing for me. And I maintained calma with the chance creation. Just wait. When this point comes, and if we succeed from it, we will have some very different conversations, and we are doing the business against these teams. And that's what I am happy about.
I'm saying it already, mate. Arsenal winning the league. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Inspiration.